Hey there, commercial construction coffee talk fans. Welcome to our podcast this evening. Hope everything's going great out there. Things are hanging in there in Atlanta. Hopefully we won't have another crazy night like all the other cities in the United States these days, but never a dull moment during COVID. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate you finding the time to find us out there on podcast land. Tonight, got a really good guest. We just had a pre-chat about sports and so forth. So I'm excited about this discussion. And with that, I'm sitting here with Jamie Sullivan, who is the director at Core States Group. Some of you think of them as a project management firm, but they've evolved actually into really A&E, signage, and construction. They've got their hands in a lot of the things in the construction sector. And with that, let me introduce you to Mr. Jamie Sullivan. He's obviously from Boston. He's not from Philly. He's got the Bruins going there. He's got the Boston logo. So say hi, Jamie.
David, thanks for having us on. Pleasure.
Yeah.
Really excited to chat with you tonight.
Yeah, we appreciate the time. So tell us about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school, how you got into construction, Core States Group. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, so I grew up in Virginia, went to Virginia Tech, son of a contractor. My dad was an electrician. And if we weren't working, we were digging ditches and pulling cable for dad. And I went to Virginia Tech, got a degree in civil engineering, and then kind of came out right at a time when there was a big housing boom in Northern Virginia and started my career in land development sector, doing a lot of work on the residential side, subdivisions, then kind of started getting into some larger commercial stuff. And then I happened to be married to a lady in the military, so we move around a little bit. So my wife's an officer in the Coast Guard. Very proud of her and that service.
We appreciate her service. And, thanks for keeping us safe.
Oh, thank you. Definitely. Yeah, so with her, we moved around a little bit. So Virginia to Tampa, to Boston, to Seattle, and back here now. So on my first round in Boston, I got kind of poached to come on over to help grow the civil engineering group with Core States in Boston in the Massachusetts market, and then ended up kind of expanding that and got in a couple different roles and markets, and then eventually it got really narrow and really focused on restaurants. So that's where it's been for the last 5 years.
Getting back to your family, were they commercial or were they mostly residential, or both?
My old man he kind of dabbled in what was around, right? He did a ton of residential, and that was kind of his sweet spot, but every once in a while he'd pick up a commercial job. But and then he got really in a very specific niche market and doing some high-end homes and things like that. So I just got stuck. I was a laborer, so I think it's anything fun other than digging ditches and pulling cable.
Hey, listen, my family's in construction. They're construction, steel recycling, and been in business since 1888 and still in business. My cousin's like fourth generation. Wow. They're still running it. But when you turn 16, all the grandsons, everybody had to work in the scrapyard. The minute you got your driver's license outside of Philly, so I did the acetylene torch, I shoveled asbestos, I drove spikes on the railroad, I built, paint booths. So I totally get, if I wasn't working, I had a little time to play, but I was working, that's the way it was.
Totally.
Yeah, I had no choice. I remember one time I was on the overhead crane, and my grandfather came in, and we were putting up these paint booths, and we just welded these things, and they were doing sandblasting for train cars. And the superintendent, his name was Dominic. He's like, David, Big Sid's here with the client. You need to go up on the crane, get up on top of the booth and unhook the hook for the overhead crane. I'm like, I'm not going up there. It's about a 40-foot drop down on the railroad ties. He's like, dude, it's your grandfather. He's the owner. You got to get up there. And every night I had to have dinner with my grandparents that summer. So so my two cousins, I was working with them, and they're like, go ahead, you got to go. You're the youngest out of us all. You're getting up there and going. So I went up, and thank God the welds held it up. But I kept looking down at them like, oh man, that's a long fall. But I unhooked it, and I did it. So I totally get,
Nice.
Drug digging dishes. Hey, that's what builds character.
It did. You appreciate, I think, what you needed to do. And then I think you get out of college with a degree and you get into something a little different, and you're like, well, if I don't keep working, I'm going to be back digging ditches. So gave you some perspective on stuff.
Yeah. Well, now you go out and you watch other people dig ditches when you go out on the site projects, whatever the project is, I'm sure. So, you can appreciate those guys that are out there, getting it done, COVID or not.
Totally.
So,
Yep, definitely.
so let's talk about Core States. They're they're A&E firm. They've got the signage division that I'm aware of, and I know they do construction. In the magazine, they're always listed in all the different surveys and reports that we do. So I know that they are very diverse with what they have to offer. Let's talk about right now. Obviously, everything was flying high, low unemployment, cranes all over the place, no matter what city you were in this year. Everything's cranking along. March comes in, COVID, shutdown, and now we're kind of in that reopening mode. Up in the north, you guys obviously had a little tougher gig than other states. Like here in Georgia, the restaurants were shut down, but construction went on, and we reopened here first in the states, and everything is pretty much getting back to normal. I always told people doing these podcasts, when the traffic comes back, you'll know that that's a very good sign that people are going back to work.
Right.
And so traffic is back. We're getting back to normalcy, but still some of the restaurants are open. My son, he was a waiter at a Mexican restaurant, and now they've just started to open up, but they were doing the curbside, but they had to kind of rethink how they were going to do social distancing and make the revenues. Yeah. You can't make money at 25%. How are you going to keep everything safe? Are you going to put sneeze guards up? There's all sorts of different things. So restaurants have a very, very tough gig in the reopening in the post-COVID world. Call it whatever you want.
They definitely do.
It's not.
Yeah,
like
I think a lot of it. It's a challenge across all the different sub-markets right now. I think there's so much that has impacted one, how they're operating and how they're trying to move forward. And I think if you look across all of them, like fast casual, fine dining, casual dining, fast food, everybody's taken a different approach in what they're trying to do to get open. And for us, it's been interesting. With a company like ours, we're doing a lot of different things, and we don't just work in restaurants. Retail, petroleum, energy, retail, and it's you see a lot of different things. Our signage team ended up working a lot with Rite Aid, creating sneeze guards for them. On the restaurant side of things, we've been advising clients on how to get reopened and how the regulations are changing their designs moving forward. And we're working on do we bring in the sneeze guards and help out the restaurants from that perspective as well. And we're even having some companies come to us now and say, hey, we need to start looking at maybe coming up with a new restaurant design that's takeout, drive-through only. I think, the fast casual and the casual dining, there's a lot of brands that you hear Texas Roadhouse adding drive-throughs when that, market segment never was, anticipated having that as a revenue stream. And now, they're talking about, should we retrofit all of our restaurants moving forward? But I think the big thing that's going to drive it is safety, right? Safety for the employees, safety for the customers. And that's going to start to affect a massive amount, I think, moving forward as things reopen around the country. It's definitely changed for the foreseeable future, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was on a contractor engineering call last week, maybe it was the week before, and they were discussing how they were talking about like grocery stores and some of the big boxes that you won't shop anymore. It's going to become a showroom, and most of the building's going to be used for distribution, or they're going to set up distribution points in the parking lot. Or if you're a movie theater, the drive-ins are going to come back. They're learning how to, they were talking about putting pallets and putting the screen outside and streaming the audio on your FM. And a lot of brands are just going to have to reinvent themselves to survive because until there's a vaccine, which we don't know when that's going to happen, it's still going to be here. We're going to have to learn to live with the darn bug. But for the psychological standpoint of people going out to dinner, to get that, am I going to be safe, or are they going to sneeze on my food, or all of those things that they have to think about. The restaurants have probably the toughest bill to overcome because they've got food.
I agree.
They've got safety. They just have all of those, and their margins are so tight that if they cut their tables, it makes it that much tougher. And Texas Roadhouse like we have 3 or 4 of them up here, and I can go to one in Cumming. I've got one in Marlow, Georgia. Those places are packed. So I haven't gone to one yet since we reopened, but it'll be interesting when I go in there to see if it's just do they have a other table? Do they have the dividers up high so you have more privacy? Because I know some of the brands are doing that as well. Kiss goodbye any buffets or anything like that. Those are gone.
I agree.
Those brand I'm not going to mention any names, but we all know who they are. Like if you have a buffet, you got to think about a new plan, because that's not going to work in what's going on with today. And it's a shame because there's a lot of people that were at some of those brands. And but drive-through, huge gig. And I can imagine what the redesign would have to go through with existing stores, let alone new store plans. Like Texas Grows Out, that's a perfect example, because there's so many steakhouses. They have a pickup area where they'll have a parking area, a designated parking area, pickup only.
Well, I think a lot of people were thinking about it. I think if you think about the third-party off-premise dining that's happening through all the apps, right? Whether it's DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, a lot of these restaurants were already thinking about takeout. Some of them were toe dipping it. They were like, we're just going to try it without thinking about it. And they're adding this revenue stream to their, to their operations that they hadn't really considered before. And now, when they were forced to only do takeout or curbside, I think they've said, you know what, maybe we can actually do this, right? And I think you look at Chipotle before this, they were rolling out the Chipotle, right? And talking about how they were going to add that to there, which was a drive up takeout window. You had, like I said, everybody was looking on the app. How do we manage the app? Do we make our own app? How do we, should that augment our catering business? Do we think about catering? And then you had this idea coming into, again, before COVID, people were saying, look, the third-party off-premise dining, the third-party apps are impacting our traditional customer experience. And so there was this movement going, how do we manage that piece? And now it's become almost the only thing that people are talking about. And, how do we integrate this, manage it, and execute it well as we get back up and running? And they're taking a playbook from the fast food world and trying to emulate that efficiency and flow. It's affecting everything. Inside the dining room, they're changing the way they're doing it. Like you mentioned earlier, less seats, but back of house, maybe they're adding an additional cook line to support that takeout window, that they hadn't before. So now they're reworking the entire back of house, and how do they accommodate that change inside the restaurant? So the one market segment in the restaurant world, is fine dining. Fine dining is a dine-in customer experience, and you're going there for the ambiance, everything. I think that one's going to have a tough one coming out of this. How do you make the changes, stay open, and drive revenue when you're at 25, 50% capacity and still have that experience? And everybody's worried, like you said, I'm worried about the people next to me or the person over here or the staff, or how do I feel safe? I saw a video, I think it was in maybe Sweden or Norway, and they had people sitting in these glass boxes outside, and they would hand the food over, and then the glass would go out the window and they'd pour it. Is that our new dining experience? I hope not. I
hope
love
not.
Going out.
Boy, that sounds really
right.
stale.
That's a crazy way to be looking at it. But I do think that there's a lot of change afoot, right? And I think it starts, like as I mentioned, with safety, as they try to figure out how to get this open. Because regardless of whether you're down in Georgia or up here in Massachusetts, I think that in general, the restaurant industry, whether you take a national chain, they're going to implement the same safety in every restaurant they have. And so you're going to see the effects hit everybody from that perspective.
Yeah, we just posted an item today about Starbucks that they're going to pull a lot of their stores out of the malls. Hate to say that for the shopping center guys, but they want to do more drive-ups because they realize that that's a revenue stream. Instead of having 5 Starbucks in a mall, they get out freestanding and have much more volume than they would having people. Because you're going to have the social distancing and so forth. People in the cars, you don't have to have that. You can drive volume. And people are going to learn from what other people do. I mean, there's nothing wrong with in my column, in my May issue, I said, look, winning ugly there's nothing wrong with it as long as you get the W. And, look what other people are doing. Just take what they're doing and tweaking it so it works for you. What someone else doing might not work for you, but their idea might. You just need to figure out, you guys are engineers and architects and designers, so you guys can figure out a way that you can help your client, to get to that level so they can have that revenue stream so they can survive and keep their people employed. Because
Totally.
Oh yeah, the whole COVID thing is just crazy when you just think about. I mean, airplanes. I see some of the videos where they'll have the 2 seats, and they got the plastic in there, and how much weight does that put on the plane? Or it's going to cost more with jet fuel. I mean, all of these things you don't all these different things you have to think about. That and on my last week, I was talking to CDO, they're a project management firm. I said, look, we're going to talk 5-10 years ago from now. You won't even recognize what some places look like today and what they're going to look like down the road. And because
no, I agree wholeheartedly. There's a lot of change coming, and I think we got to be flexible, right? And what we consider, what we think is going to work, and how we adapt that to the new environment. In any, whether it's retail, restaurant, or residential. I mean, any of these, how we interact as a society and person to person is changing, right? Especially when you have something like this happen.
So with your clients, you've been doing Zoom calls, or have you done site visits, or how have you kind of managed your way over the last couple months?
Sure. Obviously, just like a lot of companies, we're doing a lot of Zoom calls. We're doing a lot of FaceTime, a lot of phone. Did several interviews for upcoming projects and programs. When we felt safe and we had the right measures in place, we were doing some site visits for certain restaurant chains, and other firms couldn't get there. So what we had said was, hey, not to take the business, but to help the team, why don't we scan the store? It was a per punch out. And so we used our Matterport camera and we scanned the entire inside of the restaurant, and we shared that with the team. And I think it showed a willingness to kind of be able to work across the aisle with people at different firms to help them keep moving, and as well as keep ourselves moving and provide value and get stores open for our clients. So that was kind of an innovative, fun way, using some high tech to so people could do virtual site visits. That was pretty cool. Again, I think it's just picking up the phone, connecting with people, and we've even done some virtual happy hours. Those have been kind of fun. Like you said, being a little bit more relaxed, but, catching up with people, taking a minute to see how they're doing as opposed to just jumping into work. But yeah, lots of calls, lots of video chatting, and, a few interesting ways on how to keep people back in the field safely.
Now, core states, guys are all located all over the U.S. And so are you
17 offices?
Yeah. So you got 17 offices. Are you allowing employees to work out of their house now, or making them come in, or how have you done working just internally with your own force?
Sure. So yeah, as I mentioned, 17 offices, 350 people, from east to west, right? Covering, north to south. We've got the whole country covered. And for us, our company put a lot of effort and dollars into our infrastructure, whether it was our network, our VPN, and the hardware that we had. But we made a choice as a company to send everybody home, and everybody worked virtually from home across the entire 17 offices. And I think it was amazing how seamless it was. I think we had the IT team was sending out tips and tricks for people on how to work home, how to make sure, if you needed something, you got something shipped to you. And it really allowed everybody to, it was almost seamless, right? We kind of had we're open and thriving was like our little catchphrase. And we had virtual company meetings for management, which really kept people abreast of what we were doing. HR was sending out things on how to properly, if you had to go in the office, how you do it. And every office was doing virtual happy hours every other Friday, just checking in with people. And so, yeah, I think it's been, initially it was weird, right? But now it's our new normal, and core states and the core staters have done a great job of coming together and just, keeping going and serving our clients. So
do you think you're more productive?
It's been really surprising.
Do you think you're more productive?
I don't know. I don't know. To me, honestly, from the A&E side of things, it's a very collaborative environment. when I started, you get around the table, you need to start drawing up something. You really need to share those ideas. I think there's something to be said about being in the office and working together, in the design world.
Mhm.
But can we work from home? 100%. And maybe there's an opportunity when people are on leave or when people have to do things, that there's opportunities for them to, work from home safely, or maybe we can be in an area remotely. Maybe we don't need to have and spend the money and the dollars to open up an office, and maybe we can get there by working virtually, So I think there's a lot of advantages to it, but I think, I think in our world, on the A&E side of things, there's something to be said about getting around the table and designing and, collaborating face to face. And, I hope we get back to that as well.
We're a social animal. We weren't built to be being
Totally.
caves. If someone's going to say, "Hey, I want you to design and build 100 of our locations," you're going to have some face-to-face contact and so forth. You're not going to, "Hey, I'll send me a DocuSign and I'll do it over the computer." We got to be social people. However, a lot of firms that I've talked to that were very worried about having their employees, the ones that I've multiple firms, whether they're contractors or engineers, brands, they've said that it's amazing that over the last couple of months, they've seen that their productivity is going up. Meetings take less time. People are more productive. They get more done in a day, and they're less stressed. They're not going through rush hour. They're not dealing with, burning gas and all that stuff, and all the mental issues that come with it, going into, but their companies want to keep their culture, their corporate culture too. They don't want to lose that. So
Yeah.
can you keep it on technology, or do you need some face-to-face? And, whenever they get a vaccine, or if the bug burns itself out, whatever the outcome's going to be, will people go back? I think the commercial real estate market's going to change too, because there are going to be some firms that are just going to let their people work. They're not going to need all this space. They might just need a conference room where they'll go rent it out. And those guys are going to have to figure out, what am I going to do on these different floors and so forth. I remember I went to University of Denver when I went to school in the 80s. It was right after the oil boom, and they had all these buildings downtown Denver, but they were all empty. And but now they're full. So that it evolved, and
It will. Yeah, no, I think we will evolve, and I think some of the things you shared about the experience people are having working from home, I definitely is something that I think is going to affect the way that we look at working and collaborating. And I think so many people there was a perception, right, working from home, you weren't going to get stuff done, or whatever, but I think it's shown that we can, right? But at the same time, like you said, need the connection. But I think it's it's going to help, right? It gives us another kind of tool in our toolkit. We can work from home. We can be more flexible, and we can really keep working when we need to.
Well, I'm going to feel comfortable that any restaurant that Core States that redesigns, that goes in, I'm going to have no problem going in there without a mask, without any gloves, and eating my food, and know that I'm going to walk out and I ain't going to catch the bug. So,
Appreciate that.
As a rugby guy, Virginia Tech Hokie, I'm glad you're on my team. Okay. Cause you said, you were a defenseman. So I'm gonna, you're my line of defense there for the Bucs. So I'm glad you're on my side.
Appreciate that, David.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving forward with our guests out there, if you wanted to leave them with one knowledge nugget, as from your side of the business, in the restaurant world, or just helping brands in general in retail, what would you say to them, as we end our podcast here? What would you like to leave them with? One thought or knowledge nugget, or one word. What would you leave them with?
Sure. I'd have to say, I've said it a couple of times, flexibility, right? I think that, with these adverse times and how we come out of this together, we need to be flexible about how we figure out how to meet deadlines, how we figure out how to tackle problems, how we figure out how to change design, how we, everything that we're going to do, we need to be flexible in how we execute that, each and every day as we, like we said, step back into, back to normal, right? And I think that's, the important piece, right? We got to get it done, but you got to be flexible. You got to figure out a solution. And, we need creativity and that flexibility to get people and things open again.
Well, listen, Core States is back in everything the way you just said, because they used to be just a project management firm, and now they do all sorts of them. They had to be flexible to get into all those different sectors. So you're living exactly what you're telling people. So I always look at sports, business like sports. I always say, look, if the game plan's not working, scrap it, be flexible, and move on. Because winning
Totally.
ugly, it doesn't matter. As long as there's a W at the end of the game and you got it, it's okay, because this is a W. And some wins are going to be prettier than others. But as long as the W's there, that's what we're all playing the game for. So Jamie, if any of our commercial construction coffee talk guests out there want to get in touch with Core States or talk to you about restaurant development, design, execution, how can they get in touch with you?
Sure. You guys can check us out at www.core-states.com, or you can email me at jsullivan@core-states.com, or give me a call, 617-645-6240.
All right, Coffee Talk fans out there, if you're looking for an AE, signage, construction, or anything else that you're looking for a new vendor, give Core States a call. They'll prove their worth. All they need is a chance. If you give them an opportunity, they'll prove it and then some. If you want to get in touch with me, David Corson, I'm the host. I'm also the publisher of Commercial Construction Magazine. You can email me at David C. That's C like cat, David C at CCR-mag.com. Once again, David C at CCR-mag.com. Also, if you're not a subscriber, you can go to our main website at CCR-mag.com. Up on the toolbar, you'll see a button there. It says subscribe. Click on that. You can download the PDF form, or you can fill out the form right online. We'll get you added to our mailing list. And if you have any cool projects that you're doing out there, we always like to hear from you. You never know what might end up in ink, but we'll find a place for it. So we'd love to hear from you. So Jamie, good luck to the Bruins when the NHL gets back out on the ice. I'm psyched to, I miss sports. Without sports, I don't even know what day it's been. So I
hear you.
I'm a hockey, lacrosse guy. I normally be coaching on the weekends, and then without sports, I don't know what day it is. So that's just like my calendar. So let's get back on the ice. Let's get the baseball players, figure out their money issues, get that done, get back out on the diamond, and it'd be nice to see some lacrosse out there too. And hopefully the football, we're down here in Atlanta, so this is SEC country. We want to see some football with some stadiums full. So
definitely.
So with that said, thank you so much from Beantown up there. I'm in Atlanta.
Thank you, David.
All you Coffee Talk fans out there, be safe. Remember, wash your hands, sing birthday twice, don't touch your face, and you'll be okay, and you're going to make it. So with that, we're going to say goodnight and sign off. Jamie, I look forward to meeting you. I have my CCRP scheduled for after July 4th. I don't know if we'll do it. If so, I'll meet you in person. If not, well, I'll see you virtually online. So
perfect. Thank you for having us.
Hey, anytime. And once again, everybody be safe out there. We'll catch you on our next episode. Thanks, Jamie. We're going to sign off, all right? See ya.
Take care now. Thanks, bud.